Hello, everyone. It's a long day, but I want to share something really exciting with you guys. That's a lot of experience on the data platform team from Stack Overflow, and I know that's a brand everybody really have your heart in. So thank you for the support, and thank you for showing up here. Next slide is just looking for statement. Make sure everybody understand this is for information only, and of course. Do the survey, and that will be very helpful for us to understand how to improve the quality of our talk. All right, let's get started. So, is there any Lego fan in the crowd? Yes, me included. Okay, but I'm only so addicted to Legos for 6 months because I got my first set for my birthday in January, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a decor, and I might enjoy it or not. They're collecting dust. So I got it, and I was like, oh my God, I want a second set. So that was 2 weeks in, all right, I just powered through it. And then right now, I'm on my 8th set, and my coworker knows I have a full-blown collection behind me just in the span of 6 months. So I got really addicted to the process of dumping out bricks and yeah, okay, this is kind of overwhelming, but you know what? I'm just going through the flow and enjoy, see things getting built. And then but once things get built, guess what I do next? I buy another set, and I keep just dumping out bricks and keep building. And I start thinking about this. Why am I doing this? Why am I spending so much money on those toys? I think this is actually something really close to what engineers do, on a daily basis. It's we kind of just run towards kiosks, and we create kiosks, and we love it. We're just okay, the process of actually recognize pattern and polish your pattern and get better and do it again. That's the thing. That's the thing make us engineers. So, I mean, that's the same case for our data platform team. We have 4 data engineers. That's the kind of the experience we ran through the last year and a half. So I think this is we turn chaotic bricks challenge into pattern, and we build things smarter, and now we get to share about this with you guys, with a friend. So I want to make sure that it's a long day. I want to make sure you actually get something from this talk. If you never heard about DAB, Databricks Asset Bundle, that's okay. That's just something help us to deploy Databricks pipeline in a more streamlined way. I think it's going to be helpful for you to get some use case out of this presentation, and now you understand, okay, maybe that is the tool for me, and I'll just go read up the Databricks documentation and go from there. They have really good documentation. And also, if you already have some experience with Databricks Asset Bundle, you will realize there is some difference the way we use it versus the classic documentation provided, and that's where you're going to focus on the tweaks, right? And then if you're in the third category, you're in a small team, just like us, we have 4 DE, and you feel oh my God, I get more pipeline to build than the number of engineers I got on my hand. Focus on where we do the scaling and the streamlining. So that's where we get all the learning fruits from this 1.5 year. So let's start with looking, just turn our time back for 1.5 years, the challenge that we have, and also how we actually thinking about what are the requirements to overcome these challenges, thinking about what are the goals for us to have the data platform built, so that will make things a little bit easier for our team. And then eventually how we come up with a list of attack strategy and principles to follow for the next 1.5 years of building process. So first of all, you guys probably have a good idea of what Stack Overflow is, hopefully, and what Stack Exchange is. So that is for the serving of public community, right? You have Stack Overflow for programming, and then Stack Exchange, there are all kinds of topics, over hundreds of topics, right? So that's just the public part. And also we offer Stack Overflow team. So that is the enterprise solution. Basically, you have your own private Stack Overflow, and you have this knowledge, repository to share, inside of your company's network, and we have our team to support that. So that's, classic dual missions. So as data platform team, we need to support how can we polish these product to make things a little bit more, a little bit better for everybody to use. And also, put that aside, we have growing demand from multiple departments because they have their own favorite tool to use, multiple tools, that is just pumping out data on a daily basis. So there are like third-party, data sets that we need to also curate into our data pipeline and then have that available in the warehouse so that once everything is in one single spot, it could be joined and analytics people can start making data-driven insights, stuff like that. So as you can see, the pain points from this nature of environment that we're in is one is we need to make sure of data isolation, right? So because we have multiple products, multiple product line, we make sure we don't mix apples and oranges together. That's very important. So that means, you're gonna have to have tons of repository based on the classic documentation. Like if you're deploying one pipeline, you're gonna have one asset bundle, another one. That's not gonna happen. We only have 4 people. So, and then you have to make sure you scale, right? We need to deal with like a large data volume. We're talking about Stack Overflow, guys. And then about a year and a half ago, we were using DBX. So it was not very easy to learn. The learning curve is kind of steep for new data engineers, and we have to do a lot of documentation. So, and luckily, Databricks came up with, DAB, and it gets things a lot easier for us. So that's where we start our journey. We were able to lower this learning curve for new data engineers. So we have a list of goals to achieve in this new build repo. We want to make sure we have code reusability tuned to the maximum because we have not enough people, so we're going to have to speed up the pipeline creation process with maximize shared components, right? We never build the same thing twice, and now you're going to have to deal with, inconsistency. That's tough. And then we have to want to have clear structure, meaning you don't actually have to read through like a whole big documentation about how when you're onboarding a data team. You look at a repo, you kind of get it. Look at a few, feature branch commits. You get it, how to add a new pipeline. And the repo is just very structurally clear, and you understand, okay, maybe a little bit after a few pipeline in, you're like, oh, I start connecting the dots. That's how things connected together. That's how dev learn. And then we want to make it flexible so that we're not like locked down to a certain pattern. And this repo has to be worked for multiple products, right? Because multiple products meaning there's different business requirements. So you're gonna have to give it space to breathe, right, in your repository. So you gotta make sure you have the flexibility to break apart from the previous pattern, but it can coexist in the same spot. And then that's gonna be what everybody's favorite is, minimize context switching. I hate context switching. If you're telling me that I'm gonna work, well, you do the math, right? We're 4 DE, we have hundreds of pipeline. If I have to switch from one repo to another on one day of job, I'm going nuts. Like, I'm crazy. I cannot do my work efficiently, right? That's why we want one repo for all the pipelines. The pipeline that goes to deploy to multiple products for multiple clients, even towards multi-tenants. And it can be done. So here are the 3 bullet points of the structural principle that we end up wanting to focus on. One is we're going to use DAB as a foundation because it provides a lot of flexibility for the team to prosper, build up our own pattern. And second one is we made clear pipeline boundary. So 3 things: client, meaning the data owner, because you don't want to mix client A's data with client B's data, right? They need to be processed in separate pipeline. The second one is the product. Product meaning what? Different the business process, you're going to have different data model. It's going to be different. So apparently you're going to have two different pipeline for 2 different products. And of course, environment. So you understand that. And then we want to make it dynamic. That's what DAB offers us, is allow us to really let the configurable value to drip through the multiple layers, which I'm going to talk about that in detail later, so that it actually make this multi-tenant, flexible, multi-target, multi-pipeline deployments from one single pipeline a real thing. So to sum up, for the challenge to our design principle, before for us it was just hundreds of pipelines to build, very overwhelming. We don't have enough people, stretched team, and there is a longer onboarding time. And of course, for us to build anything new, it just feels like it's not that fast. You're typing out code and you see it's working, and you're just iteratively building. This cycle is not fast enough. And then after that, we have one repo deploys all the pipeline, and we have a reusable module, and it's your choice. You want to use it, use it. If you want to add new module, great, because people are going to use it later. And then we achieve a balance between reusability and the flexibility. If you remember about the flexibility that I was talking about earlier, if you wanted to decouple from the existing pattern because you're adopting a new product for your pipeline repo, you can do that. It's okay, right? So that, and also we can effortlessly scale for multi-tenant. So that's the part is going to work with our infrastructure team enterprise level configuration. They use Octopus Cloud. So in this next session, I'm going to talk about this 5-layer of the pipeline architecture. So you're going to see some code blocks. That's okay. I know it's late for the day. Take a picture of it, and I will make sure the structure is pretty much the same, and then I will show you where you're going to focus on, okay? How that's going to be different from the classic example from Databricks DAB. So let's go on the first layer. So this top layer is our CI/CD workflow. We use GitHub. The top layer, GitHub workflow. And then we have this 2-level workflow. So it's one GitHub workflow call another. Okay, simple. So you would see this first part is blinking on the top right. We call that release bundle pipeline. So that's going to be the workflow that actually has all the steps that you need to deploy a pipeline using DAB, which is the shared portion of the GitHub workflow actions. And then we have the second box. So these are going to be the GitHub workflow actually has all the parameter values to pass onto this common one, to the first one. And it's going to be determined by which product, which environment, which client. Remember that boundary I was talking about earlier. So that's where you got your first taste of reusability right there. So in the shared steps, which is the first blue box over there, it's pretty straightforward, right? First, you Azure logged in, and make sure you use a service principal. Do not use your developer's account to do that, because once that person left, you're going to have overhead. Because somebody deployed the pipeline, they're going to own it. Can you imagine when that person left and their account get deactivated? That's going to be a lot of work, right? We don't want to do that. Use service principal, save you some time. And then the bundle validation, which is the Databricks bundle validate. So it will tell you everything checked out. The pipeline definition looks good. And sometimes, if you find, I don't know, based on if something goes wrong during the validation, I don't understand what's going on, turn on the debug flag. it will give you more verbose log content, so it will help you. That actually helped me in the past. And then you either do deploy or destroy. So deploy, everybody knows that. Destroy is basically, scratch all the stuff that deployed before, so clean slated. And also there's another thing. Set the Databricks _host, set that URL in your product, in your the GitHub workflow that has all the parameters. That will allow you to deploy your pipeline into multiple Databricks workspace. That's very helpful because I remember when I first started with DAB, in the example, they actually have the workflow URL inside of the next layer, which is the Databricks configuration. So that means all your pipeline is going to deploy to the same workspace. You can't do that, right? So that's the trick to do that. All right, let's move on to the next layer. That's the bundle definition layer. And where it blink is where it's called databricks.yaml, and it's always gonna look like that. And in the bundle definition, the first section is you're gonna have a bunch of bundle variables. So those are gonna be the bundle variables that configure for this bundle specifically, and it will expect these values to be received from your first layer, which is your GitHub workflow. And of course, there is a few categories of those, right? The boundary, what client, what products, which environments goes into. And then the connectivity. So where is your upstream, right? If the data coming from Azure Event Hub, what's the connectivity? Do not save any secrets in there. Let's use Data Vault-backed secret scope, okay? In Databricks, let's not put any secrets in your GitHub workflow. That's bad. And warehouse, stuff like that. And also job-related stuff, like your Chrome schedule for job run, webhooks, for notification from your workspace, and also access. So those are going to include the security group and also the permission you want to grant them. What kind of like a manage or read or stuff like that. And then you're going to have this section. It's called deployment target. So for us, we use 3 targets: dev, prod, that's easy to understand, and then user. So user is where we actually plugged in the GitHub actor. So when we actually triggered a GitHub workflow, we can capture a GitHub actor, which is developer's handle on the GitHub account, so that it allows us to have a separate deployed files for these developer. That means it's like a sandbox environment. They have their own pipeline. So even when testing in the dev workspace, their pipeline is not going to mess with other people's pipeline that deploy from the same thing. So that's actually pretty nice. And of course, you see we actually baked in the boundary in our file, the file path, which is environment, bundle name, client, and product. So that is enforced file structure for the deployed pipeline files on the workspace, so that it's very easy and it's very consistent. Remember, that's the structure, the clear structure, very predictable structure, so that our developer always know how to go through those directory to find their stuff. Where's their stuff, right? That's where. And also, for the layer 2, make sure you include the sync pass .src in it. So what it does is, if you take a close look at the screenshot of our repo structure, you will find out we actually have multiple bundles under the bundles folder. So that's how we able to basically stuff multiple bundle into one repo, is we have the SRC folder is go beyond each individual bundle folder. So what .src do is, when it gets deployed, it tells DAB where to find all the source file. I'm going to talk about source file a little bit later, but that's how we do it. That's the trick. And we actually get take this inspiration of this from Dustin's work. So I'm going to include a slide at the very end of this. He had a great session yesterday when I went there. It's amazing. And also, this is what's going to look like in your workspace after you hit deploy. So you notice the SRC folder is underneath your bundles file directory. That's the result of sync.src do for us if you choose to put SRC on the same level of your individual bundle. Okay, we're moving on to layer 3. Resource definition. So what is resource? Resource is job definition, pipeline meaning DLT pipeline definition. So those are the orchestrator of your lower logic, right? Like notebooks and Python and stuff like that. So that's where it goes. They goes under each individual bundle folder and under the resource folder. You see here, I have job.yaml and the DLT_1. You can keep everything in one, but for me, I just like to have them separate, so it's kind of easy. Otherwise, you end up having a really long YAML. I hate that. So in a typical resource definition YAML file, you will have your workflow, pipeline. Make sure you use the variables, right? So for example, the name for your workflow, that's how our job, like all the job that deploy from this repo gonna look like. It's just going to be feed with different client, product, and environment, and it's all follow this naming convention. So it's gonna be very predictable to find. And also make sure you use a tag. Tag is also going to help you to find, if you have tons of data pipeline deployed to a workspace, use tag wisely so that you can filter them out by your tagging. And of course, we use this variables for navigating to the notebook path. So that's going to be the next layer that become dynamic. So we pass the variable through Spark config. This is how we do it. It's just we have a $sign and then the variable name, this var.variable name. And then in that way, your next layer, which is a notebook, it will get these variables from all the way from your GitHub workflow, right? It drips through. That's how all the variable pass through these layers. Let's move on to layer 4. So layer 4 is your notebook definition, which is going to be called or driven by your last layer, which is the resource, the job, the DLT pipeline. So make sure, so here's a thing, like I'm trying to show you where the dots are connected. So in your Databricks.yaml, which is your layer 2, you will have this line called workspace root path. That's where you define where your file is going to deploy in your workspace using variables. And then in the layer number 3, in the resource, which is your job or pipeline definition, you have this Spark config. It passed this workspace file path through with the /src. What it does is it passed this string into the notebook. Remember, the Spark config is how we pass the value into a notebook. And now we do sys.pass append, get the bundle.source path. In that way, it would append the src directory to the Python for the Python interpreter so that it will find your module that is defined under src. That's how things tie together. So if you look at the structure of a typical notebook, you will have your imports, which is your standard library, and then your custom module, which is stuff under your src that you built. And then you're going to have the variable read, so it's basically reading the bundle variable from the Spark config, and then your function. I know a lot of people, they will write like a long, really long notebook, right? And you guys probably heard about the medallion. So what we do is just to keep this structurally clear, we actually have just function call, right? For raw, bronze, silver, gold. And then we have all those medallion logic defined in the next layer, which is in the Python modules. So this is the last layer. And then you will notice under SRC, we have like different subfolder. So clients meaning like if when the pipeline has to deal with different type of external like connectivity. So we have like API, Databricks, that's one category. And also we have common, which is for some helper function apparently, and there's a configuration. So those are like product specifically configuration logic. How is it going to read from this config? So that's going to be there. And then we also have our the medallion logic, as you see at the very bottom of this blue box on the right, with raw, bronze, silver, gold. That's where the shareable, reusable medallion logic goes. So this is the last layer. So this entire thing, it follows do not repeat yourself principle, the drive principle, and make sure we have reusable components for fast pipeline development. And they're all interchangeable through the notebook function calls. So in that way, we gain this mobility. If you guys see it, it's quite apparent here. So lots of code was written, right? You saw lots of code in there. But it took over a year for us to get here from the beginning of that become a thing. And now we're sharing this with you guys. And I no doubt, I know some of you guys probably have way more advanced usage for DAB, and I always hear about those during the office hour for DAB. It's amazing. And then the thing is, when are we going to start all this if you're at either stage, right? I mentioned earlier. How are you going to start this, and when are you going to start? Our SRE, Chris, I like this. He always says sooner is better than never. Is now. But you're not going to write this whole repo like in one night, right? Rome was not built in a day, neither a data platform. So this is like how the last year and a half boiled down to. So if you don't have anything, start. You have a single notebook. You have lots of implementation. You don't even have function extracted fine, right? Just it does the thing, and it get the result for you. You're happy. So now you want to productionize it. You're going to start getting organized stuff, right? Start extract function, put the function on, push it to the top of a notebook. You will start organizing it. And now the next step is you're going to make some common notebooks so that maybe for a different product, you can use some common notebook just for configuration, right? Now you move from one notebook to two notebooks, or one to multiple, because guess what? This configuration is going to work for all your product. You're not going to write it multiple times. And the third step is scale with your CI/CD. Because all the hard work you did, right, all the notebook, you don't want to just use it for one product. You want to use it for all the product. That's where you start gaining speed from adding more of those CI/CD workflow definition with all the parameters, all the DAB variables. And step 4 is a DAB for a specific need. So let's say if you have a very specific product that just completely, it's not even doing medallion, fine. You don't have to do medallion if the product says so. Then just use you can actually create the notebooks for your product-specific folder for your layer 4, which is notebook layer, and it's still calling that from your shareable resource, which is the pipeline definition. That still connects, right? That's why the layers, it's all interchangeable. And then you're going to keep refactoring the common notebook extract function into Python module. So now you get more mobility. Your logic is no longer live in your notebook. Notebook is a higher orchestrating from, it's beyond your pipeline, so beyond the pipeline definition. So it's to say for example, call each medallion layer. It doesn't really define a medallion layer, right? And now your Python module, which is the last layer, it's all swappable, and you can add more, You can make it more tighten up. You can do whatever you want in that layer. Switch it out if it doesn't work. And then the last step is keep growing. Keep iterating. Grow without breaking. So the trick that I shared earlier was the user sandbox pipeline, right? Have those little things built in your CI/CD workflow so to make sure your team is not going to step on each other's toe. That's important for us. That ensure you actually go the full speed you want and you're not, stopping, blocking each other. And every time we put in new stuff, we look around, do some minimal refactoring, right? Clean up after yourself. Keep everything stable. Stable meaning actually you're able to test something easily. That user sandbox guarantee that. So in the next session, this is a little bit break off from the more technical breakdown, is we are going to talk about how this repo is going to work with the other part of the Stack Overflow, which is our infrastructure team. So apparently they maintain multi-tenant environment for the Stack Overflow for team. And apparently we don't want to mix client A's data with client B's data. Everybody knows that. So data isolation and scaling is in the requirements. Unity Catalog was really, really helpful for us to ensure that we establish clear data boundary, which we defined at the very beginning of this project, which is client product environment. So this is how the schema naming for all our stuff in the Unity Catalog. So we have the client and environment on the catalog level, then we have the product on the schema level, and then we have the table name, and then postfix with the medallion structure. So it's like a naming convention everybody has to learn once, and we just understand it, right? And then this is going to be very secure for us because, Databricks Unity Catalog take care of all of this. Isolate data with access control. This is scalable for multi-tenants, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And it's automated schema structure enforcement to make sure there's consistency in it. So I mentioned earlier that our infrastructure team used Octopus Cloud, and the challenge was we have hundreds of clients for Stack Overflow for team, and then that means you gotta have hundreds of catalog and hundreds of pipeline deployed for every product. That sounds kind of daunting, right? That's scary. We only have 4 people. So the solution was the multi-tenant specific variables are hosted by our infrastructure team. So what this is actually their work. They proposed that for each application that want to deploy in a multi-tenant environment, we create an image when we deploy the GitHub workflow. And then it would expecting to receive the tenant-specific variable at the deployment time from Octopus Cloud. So that what it does is it combine the 2 parts, the variable that the data platform team holds and the variable that tenants related, and combine it and push towards the same workflow that we have for the pipeline that owned by data platform. So it's just like one extra layer beyond, right? So in that way, we're able to deploy hundreds of pipeline, and it just completely, because we cannot go in there and just kickstart everything. It deployed, it runs, it cleans up and creates its own environment. It's all hands-free after the deployment button is getting hit. So that's how we did it. For one product, so that's for Stack Overflow for team, we have hundreds of pipelines deployed just from one single click. So there are some deployment steps that we need to follow. The pre-install is we combine the variables, do the Azure login, the bundle validation, and the install is the bundle deployment, and uninstall is the bundle destroy for cleanup, just in case there's some client churning happening. So the benefit of this is we actually meet with our infrastructure in the middle. We leverage the existing infrastructure team deployment pattern that they chose Octopus Cloud, and then we still scale with them and automate deployment process across hundreds of tenants, which is a huge success for us. So a few key takeaways. Why that, right? One is the dynamic variable. That is the same, it helps us to achieve, to actually build this pattern. That's the thing make it possible for us. It's portable, reusable, workflow across the pipeline. And then we also leverage Databricks ecosystem, the Unity catalog, data governance, all the good stuff. And they keep building on top of it. We're just taking everything they build. Like we have a lot of, DLT, serverless come in that just makes things happening even faster. And also they have building documentation, the bundle config schema JSON that saves us time for reference when we're actually building some pipelines, and also flexible targets that allows us to do fast testing with confidence so we can iterate through the development cycle. So the impact or the gain for the Stack Overflow data platform team is we scale from one to many products within about 7 months. That's amazing. And keep in mind, each product that actually goes to, some of them, they actually go to hundreds of pipeline because of this multi-tenant setup. And then we have minimized, we have maximized the code reuse and minimized the redundancy in the repo. So we're still working on it. I mean, we're still creating chaos, still dumping out the chaotic bricks all the time, but that's okay. So we have a lot on our plate. Right? Some of those actually already done. I made slides a couple months ago. So we have a lot of data integration tasks to do. Stack has changed. We have hundreds of sites. So if we need to know what's going on, how, if the communities are happy or how to make things better for them, we need to really tap in. We have to have this integration going on so that our analysts can actually see it almost live as soon as possible, right? If something happened. And then the site analytics and also experiments. So these are the stuff, make sure we actually capture user behavior, user preference, doing different sites experiment. And then it has to get to the analyst fast. So that's something we're working on right now. And also marketing campaign. So in that way, we actually can understand how the emails reach, how the messaging between the users and the platform happens during certain campaigns. The dev service coming up, we want to know what's going on. And we also wanted to expand the data platform service offering. One is data cataloging. We want to leverage the crowdsourcing. So we allow the team, we allow the stacker who actually have the knowledge of our data, they do labeling so that we don't have to get into a meeting room to ask things again and again. They just label it, and then we use it. If we need to tag the legal department, say, hey, can you answer this question for us? They will see it. So that avoids a lot of communication time waste for us. We can focus, we can minimize the context switching. And also the self-service style in creating shareable assets. So data platform team, it's like a shared service team. We have to face a lot of clients, a lot of customer within the Stack Overflow. So how to make things more consistent and instant and easy for them is something we always keep in our mind when we keep designing, polishing our platform. And also we want to make sure our pipelines keep getting tuned for performance and lower our cost. So the goal for our data platform team is we want to make flexible, enterprise-grade data platform, and it's always that stay ahead of companies' growing needs to support all our developers. So we start with kiosks. It's the raw materials, the stuff, the business requirements in front of us. And we go through iteration, and we discover pattern along the way. And then we keep doing refactoring, and we adopt pattern, learn our lesson, and then we share with you guys and accelerate a community, and we grow together and build stuff faster and smarter. That's it. Thank you guys for being here and have this fun session with us. This is the slides that I promised. This is the inspiration where this all comes from Dustin. Again, he's great, so take a picture of that. All right, the floor is open for questions.